Welcome to this week's episode. I'm so happy you're here. Today, we're talking about converting conversations into consulting opportunities. This is one of I'll call it a micro step in your business development process that can be one of the most challenging that I see as I work with independent consultants every day, how to get those conversations that you might be having. And the conversations could be quote unquote networking conversations or conversations at events or conversations, with people online, whatever the version of a conversation is. Don't take that too literally. Whatever version of the conversation is that you're having, how to convert that into an opportunity for yourself. So that's what we're focusing on today. I've noticed that being a trend with a lot of the consultants that I work with in a private coaching capacity, and just generally as I'm talking to consultants, which I do every day, one of the challenges. So that's why I wanted to address it on this week's podcast episode. Before we dive in, though, on a personal note, I have something very exciting happening. It's not actually a personal note. Within my business, there's something very exciting happening over the next couple of days, and I want to tease it a little bit with you. I hate when people do that because I have no patience. I want to know right away. I think we all do as humans, but I just have to tease this a little bit that there's something really exciting happening in my business over the next several days, and I'm going to be documenting all of it for you and making it into an episode, because I know that this thing is going to be really beneficial, not only for my own business, but something that is going to be really impactful for your business. So that's why I'm documenting all of it, figuring out what's working and what's not going to work, and then creating it into an episode for you. So stay tuned I'll tell you what it is and all the details about it either next week or the week after. So a little bit of a cliffhanger here on the podcast. So stay tuned. I'm excited to share all the details with you. So this morning I'm recording this. It's our first snow day. So the school was canceled. I'm recording this the week before Thanksgiving in the US. So it's going to be a long Thanksgiving break, but hopefully you won't hear anyone yelling in the background. If you do, now you know why. Okay, so with all of that, let's dive into today's topic, which is converting conversations into opportunities for you in your independent consulting business. So, as you are aware, relationships are the best way to fill your consulting pipeline. It's probably how you've landed many, or if not all, of your existing clients. Through existing relationships, people already in your network, past colleagues, past clients when you were at corporate, past, leaders that you might have worked for, or new relationships, meeting new people and building those relationships and it turning into an opportunity. This is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to fill your consulting pipeline. Relationship building, relationship marketing. It may be building relationships with decision makers. It's developing relationships with organizational influencers, those people in the organization that might not be the one signing your contract, but really can give you all the background on what the problem is and why it needs to be solved and why people care that it's solved and who the detractors are, those kinds of individuals who have influence in the organization, but might not necessarily be the quote unquote buyer. Relationships with those connectors, people who know people who are your ideal, client organizations and connect you, and that there's an authority transfer when they connect you because they're basically, introducing you to someone, and it gives you that authority transfer when that happens. Another type of relationship is the relationship that you might make with organizations that have already amassed an audience of your ideal clients. So, for example, there might be software vendors out there that have created an audience of your ideal clients. And so if you can create relationships with those types of companies or individuals who have amassed that type of audience, then you have access to a pre-cultivated, group of your ideal clients. And again, that ability to have the authority transfer. So we could go on and on all day. I could about how and why relationships are such a key core fundamental element to the success of your independent consulting business. But that's not why we're here today. Why we're here today is I wanted to touch on that just to level set here, right? Relationships in so many different ways can lead to a very full and overflowing pipeline. And so that's at a high level an important element of your business. And as we drill down, one of the challenging areas that I find is how to convert kind of that very moment or that very step in the process of where people get tripped up is converting a conversation and a relationship into an opportunity. And so that's what I want to touch on very in a micro way today to help you if you're getting stuck here. And you likely are in some form or fashion. And I'll tell you what I mean by that here in a minute. What I've been thinking about is I've got some clients, private coaching clients who are really good at this all day long. They're so good at relationships. They're so good at, those relationships turning into opportunities. And let me just take a pause for a moment because some of the language here, I want to be really careful about because we're not treating these relationships as transactions. It's quite the opposite. And you'll see that in some of the examples that I'm using. So we're not trying to turn a quote unquote relationship into an opportunity. We're wanting to turn a conversation with another human being in which we have a relationship into an opportunity. So just to be really clear about that. And you'll hear me in an example here in a minute talk about that very explicitly. But I do want to just put that out as a caveat. So anyway, back to where we were. The goal here is as I was thinking about why are some of my private clients very good at this? We're working on other areas of their business because they're very good at creating relationships, nurturing relationships, figuring out and transitioning those relationships and conversations into opportunities. And then other clients are not good at this. And that's where our bulk of our work is from a private coaching perspective is getting to the place where this becomes so much more natural and ingrained and successful part of their business. So I've been thinking about for those clients, what is the difference? What is the difference? What makes some clients really successful at this and what makes others not as successful? And it's a skill they're building. And on the surface, we might say, well, some are extroverted and some are introverted, or all of these sort of labels that we attach. But at the heart of it, that's not the truth. And so I want to walk you through what I see to be the common differences so that gives you the ability to start putting this into practice and start getting better at converting your conversations into opportunities. So today, our agenda, very explicitly, the first thing we're going to talk about on the agenda is the 3 most common reasons why your conversations aren't converting. Number 2 on the agenda is I'm going to give you an example of a best practice from one of those clients who's really good at converting conversations into opportunities. And then the third and final step of our agenda is I'll share with you a strategy to convert conversations into opportunities for your business. So we'll take that best practice and we'll talk about the third thing, which is the strategy from that best practice. All right. So with that, before we dive in, I want to remind you that this is what we're talking about today, converting conversations into opportunities is part of a standard operating procedure that I give to my clients, which is called the RAM method. And I want to give that to you as well. They get a lot more behind it, but this will really get you started. This will get you started in putting in place a repeatable, scalable, predictable pipeline filling process, lead generation process. So you can go download that at ramtech.com. rammethod.com, RAM method.com. So those 3 letters RAM stand for something. You'll go download it. You'll find out what they are. And this is really gives you a standard operating procedure against which now we're going to talk about one of the micro steps within this, which is converting conversations into opportunities. So let's start with those 3 reasons, the 3 reasons why your conversations are not converting into opportunities. So the first reason, and this is a little bit of a cheat, but you're not even having conversations. So clearly, if you're not having conversations, they're never going to convert into an opportunity. So I just want to remind you of this, because if you're not having conversations, then clearly we don't even have the opportunity to refine what you're doing to make it, to optimize it. So the reason number 1 as to why your conversations are not converting into opportunities is you're not even doing this. Some of the common reasons I hear from people are, I don't have enough time for this. I don't have time to have these conversations. And you'll see in that download that I just gave you that you can do this in as little as 26 minutes a day. I created a standard operating procedure for you that you can execute in 26 minutes a day. I know you have 26 minutes in the day. It's just a matter of prioritizing this as something that's important. So the reason why you're not having enough conversations, commonly I hear, I don't have enough time for this, or the big one is, this is not scalable to have these kinds of conversations. I don't want to be having conversations as part of a business owner. It's not scalable. The truth is, these are just easy ways that seem really logical and practical that are truly excuses. As I dig in with people, business owners, under the covers, we realize that, yeah, you might want to scale something in an independent consulting business. You never have to scale beyond having conversations. If at some point you do want to, and you're creating more of a repeatable product or something like that, then there's some opportunities to quote unquote scale down the road. But 99 times out of 100, as I'm talking with consultants about this, they're not at that stage in their business. And likely you're not at that stage in your business either, where you're kind of selling something that's very productized that you could scale in quote unquote a way that's like, ads or something like that. You can have multiple conversations at one time as a way to scale these conversations, like presenting. That's a great way. But at the heart of it, when we say things like this isn't scalable or I don't have enough time, it's almost always some fear of failing, some fear of looking desperate. And so it just sounds logical to say, this isn't scalable, I'm not doing it. But when we look under the covers, the truth is you're not willing to put in the work because of the fear of rejection or the fear of failure. So as a business owner, that's got to be addressed. That's got to be addressed. Now, if you're ready to get to the point where you're having some form of quote unquote scaling, then reach out and let's talk about this. Because 99 times out of 100, the idea that I need to create a system that's scalable is jumping ahead before you even have the base skills to be successful here. So reach out if you're at the place where you aren't feeling like you're good at having these conversations. Let's work through that. Or if you truly are good at having these conversations and are ready to do something in, kind of a more quote unquote scalable fashion, reach out. Either way, reach out. You can book a call at consultmelissa.com. Okay. But my point here is that you've got to get to the place where you're having conversations. That's the point here. The reason why you're not converting conversations into opportunities is you're not having enough conversations. Okay, reason number 2. that you are not converting conversations into opportunities is that you could be going through the motions. So you might be past the step of, well, I know that I need to have conversations in some form or fashion, either one-on-one or in groups or at events or whatever the context is, right? You might be having those conversations, but nothing's coming of them. This is very common. As I dig in with my clients and we figure out why that might be, usually they want some kind of a script. What do I say? How do I say this in a way that will help me, figure out how to get a next meeting? And yes, a script can be important, and we talk through those on our coaching calls, but there's something more important than the script that comes before the script. And that is the way you're thinking about the conversations. What I find with the clients who are going through the motions, kind of checking the box to say, well, I'm doing this work and nothing's coming of it. When they go, what invariably happens as we kind of peel back all the layers and we look at the conversations they're having, they're going into these conversations with some form of a thought process of, I don't expect anything to come of this. I don't expect anything to come of this conversation, but I'll have it anyway. So think about that. As you go into a conversation, a networking conversation, an event, a conference, a speaking, whatever it is that you might be doing, if you go into that activity with the thought process, I don't expect anything to come of this, while it takes the pressure off of you, it also lets you off the hook from really showing up in a way that is uncomfortable. When you think, I don't expect anything to come of this, you show up in a detached way, you approach it in a detached way. You're kind of like leaning back. And look, your brain is designed to prove you right. That is how all of our brains are designed to prove us right. And so naturally, if you go into one of these conversations with the idea that I don't expect anything to come of this, but I'll do it anyway, what's going to happen is that naturally, even subconsciously or consciously, you're guiding the conversation in a way that nothing comes of it. You're making a self-fulfilling prophecy. What I mean by that, to make it tangible, is if you're going in saying, I don't expect it, thinking, I don't expect anything to come of this, but I'll do it anyway, then you're on the surface level with that particular person that you're talking to. You're on the surface level. You're a little bit detached. You're kind of, gravitating more toward the friendly conversation versus the deeper conversation about what's really going on and why it matters to them and who they are, what they want in their, with respect to the problems that you solve, what they're thinking about for next year, all of those kinds of deeper questions. You stay so common if you're thinking, I don't expect anything to come of this, just to go through the motions, stay on the surface level, definitely rule out ways that you could help that person. So your brain is focused on, how is this person not the right one to move to the, to suggest a next step with. And then you get off the call and check the box and say, you know what, I did it, but nothing's happening. That's the second reason why you're not converting conversations into opportunities, is that concept of going through the motions. The third reason, on the other end of the spectrum, so if we're looking at a spectrum, on the left-hand side is kind of like, oh, I don't think anything's going to happen. I'm just sort of, phoning it in. And on the right-hand side of the spectrum is the opposite, which is like, this has to go somewhere. If you go into a conversation thinking this has to go somewhere or this should go somewhere, then what happens is it's very difficult to convert this conversation into an opportunity because you're treating it in a transactional way. I said, I mentioned this earlier. You're treating this person as a transaction versus a human. You're going into this conversation, quote unquote, qualifying them. And yes, there's some element that you want to be, figuring out, is this a person who has an opportunity, or maybe they can refer me to someone, but when you go in with this idea of this should go somewhere, and you're treating it as a business transaction that you're qualifying and thinking about this person as a quote unquote lead, that other person can sense that. You can sense it if someone's doing that to you, right? Like, I need out of this conversation. This person isn't talking to me because they're interested in me and my challenges and my, what my goals are for the for my company, or whatever the business unit is that I'm running, or whatever it is next year. They just want to know if I might pay them something. They can sense that. You can sense that if someone's doing that to you, right? So when you're going in to a conversation and making it about you and your business and not about the other person, of course, you're not going to convert a conversation into an opportunity. It doesn't go anywhere. So you want to really figure out, and I'll share with you the best, now that we know these reasons, at least on the two ends of the spectrum here, either going in so detached that nothing happens, or expecting nothing to happen, or going in and forcing it. Those are what you want to be avoiding. That's what will never lead to an opportunity. So now that we know what the blockers are in terms of converting conversations into opportunities, I want to share with you what I have seen that works, right? As we started this episode, I said I was really thinking a lot about why some clients are really good at this, and why others, this is a skill that they need to develop. And as I think about this, the qualities that I notice really come down to the way those clients who are successful at converting conversations into opportunities are doing a couple of things. They're thinking about the people in their life, those relationships, those business relationships that they have, and nurturing them and creating new ones from the perspective of, at a macro level, this is what supports my business. It doesn't have to be any one given person that creates the opportunity that leads to my next contract. So they're not going in thinking that this should go somewhere. They're not going in thinking that this won't go anywhere. They're just having a relationship and knowing and trusting that those relationships will sustain and grow their business in some form or fashion, even if they don't know exactly how that would be. They're thinking about the other person and what that other person's challenges are, and being really curious and, quite frankly, consultative, leveraging their consulting skills to really understand and create a deeper relationship with that other person, even if they just met them. They're not thinking about this as a check the box or a transaction. It's, if I were to give you in a very simple sentence, the difference between why some consultants are really good at converting conversations into opportunities and why others have this as an area of opportunity to grow, the difference is that those consultants who are really good at this are approaching these conversations in a much different mental model. The way they're thinking about themselves are things like, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at creating and cultivating relationships. And those people trust me, and they turn into opportunities where a lot of times that surprise me, that come out of nowhere. They're thinking those other people in the relationship that I've either created and have cultivated over the years, or it's a brand new one, that those people the consultant is, my client is thinking that the other people they're in a relationship with, like I said, either brand new or longer term, that those other people value the relationship, that they also see value in having conversations, that they also would love help and to help in some form or fashion, whether it's an opportunity in, within their organization or them introducing you to someone else. That's what the difference is. It's the mental model and the way that my client sees themselves and sees the other people that they're talking to and thinks about them, and the emotional state from which they're engaging in those conversations. The difference between feeling curious and connected with those other people they're talking to versus afraid and pressured. Those are the differences. And it's a nuance, but I'm telling you time and time again, it has nothing to do with a script. It has nothing to do with the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. It has nothing to do with the agenda. It can have something to do with who you're talking to, but it doesn't even have to. It has to do with the way you're thinking about yourself, the way you're showing up. Think about it. If you're showing up as a legitimate business owner who's very skillful at having conversations and helping people in some form or fashion versus I'm a new consultant and I don't know what I'm doing from a business, they're going to think I'm desperate. Think about the difference of the way that you're showing up in a subtle way. It's night and day. I love thinking about this in a way too. I have a client who is he is off the charts, very good at this. We're talking selling millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. The way he thinks about things is so different in terms of the people that he's engaging with and the brand new people that he's talking with and the relationships from, years and years in his history. The way he's thinking about those people and the potential for them to need some form of help is, to his own credit, like, I'm really good at having these conversations. I'm really good at helping people if they don't want my help. It's not about me, not making it personal, versus those consultants who are so good at consulting, but feeling like they're terrible at having conversations and turning them into opportunities. And they're new, or their business isn't going to seem legitimate if they're having these conversations and seemingly needing help. It's night and day. And so that's why it's so important, as we wrap up here, for you to be able to really focus in on the way that you're being, the way you're thinking about yourself, the way you're thinking about other people, and the way that you are thinking that other people are thinking about you. And really getting clear on that so that you're showing up in a much more powerful, helpful, definitive way versus a needy or pressured or frustrated or even desperate kind of way in those conversations. That's what makes the difference. Again, it isn't the script. It isn't the script of what you're saying. It's the way, what is the saying? Now I'm going to butcher it. So I'm not going to say it, but it's essentially the way everything is about the way we make other people feel. People, after the conversation is over, the next day, they're not going to remember what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And so really focusing and honing in on that is the key here for you to be able to convert those conversations into opportunities. What I call, quote unquote, getting clean on your mental model and your emotional state before you're going into these conversations, and not being so divorced from it that you're thinking, oh, this isn't going to go anywhere. And then also not being on the other end of the spectrum of feeling pressured that this has to turn into something. Like really dialing it in so it feels that you're in an emotional state and a mental model where you're really able to connect with that person at a deeper level. and understand their challenges, their goals, and what they want to be accomplishing in, in their business context, and how you might be able to help them, or how you might be able to help other people, and that have challenges that they know that you solve. Other people they know who have the challenges that you solve. Okay, so as we wrap up today, I'll end here with sharing that strategy that to turn conversations into opportunities. The strategy here is for you to get to focus in on this as a micro skill in your business development process, really honing in on this and saying, you know what, if I can be the business owner who's so good at turning conversations into opportunities, quite frankly, your business becomes unstoppable if you can conquer this particular skill. This particular skill that hangs up so many consultants and either forces them to take, the bird in the hand type projects, or consider going back to corporate, whatever it is, right? If you can get really good at turning conversations into opportunities, your business can be unstoppable. And so I recommend here that you consider, if this is an area of growth for you in your business, make this a quarterly focus project for yourself. You can go back to that episode. We'll put the link in the show notes. The quarterly focus project. Think about if you just focused on building this skill for the next quarter of turning conversations into opportunities, and approaching it from a perspective of, who do you need to be? How do you need to think? How do you need to feel? What are the approaches that work and don't work best for you? Turning those conversations into opportunities. If you can focus on this micro skill, your business will become unstoppable, because it means that you can fill your pipeline whenever you need to by having conversations, in whatever the form those conversations take. Okay, my friend, that's what I have for you today. Be sure to go download that RAM method standard operating procedure. It's a standard operating procedure for building your pipeline. And it is a great companion to what we've been talking about today. So that's over at rammethod.com. And I will see you again next week, hopefully with that exciting update for you. All right, that I shared at the very beginning. I'll tell you more about it when we talk next week. Okay, take care.